Council meeting, work meeting for April 6th at 6 p.m. First off, I'd like to excuse the mayor. He is out of town. His last child's last season high school sports. So he's not missing any of the last games. So he's in Vegas at a game. I believe Ty's daughter also plays on the same team. So he's down there. And Gary Chaves, I'd like to excuse him. His daughter got home from a mission. Now they're in Hawaii vacationing. So we've got us few up here tonight. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Williams and a prayer by Rachel Peart.
Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet here tonight as Tocqueville citizens. We're grateful for this beautiful country that we live in. We're thankful for our rights and freedoms. We're grateful for the love that the house for us and that we feel as we partake of the beauty that surrounds us. We ask you please bless us tonight, that we'll be kind, charitable, and give ear to concerns of those around us, and help us to be patient and understanding. We're so grateful for all that we've been given. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We have the approval of agenda. You guys look at the agenda. Right, look good.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Food. All in favor?
Aye.
Disclosure of disclosures. Anybody have disclosures for this evening? And we have declaration of conflicts. Anybody? Okay. All right, we have city department reports. Mike, sorry, Mr. Chandler. Sorry for being so formal.
Just a couple of quick updates. We started our rehabilitation removal project for the Anderson Junction pump station in anticipation of the Anderson Junction reservoir. That pump station is being moved about 200 yards back, the inundation zone. The contractor's been on site. We've run some testing through town here. One of the things that testing did
bellied out and had some surcharging lines as we want to get through that. So in the coming year, we will have some repairs as we come back through, working on these and cleaning the system. And we'll coordinate those on a case-by-case basis with individual homeowners where those occur. In addition to that, we're about a week away from the last final comments and things from the state review on our compost park treatment plant. And so we'll move forward in earnest on the design of that project in anticipation, as we talked earlier about bidding that project at the end of this year, probably mid-fall. In addition to that, we're working with the Firelight Group on an additional pump station for their development, as well as some changes on the bypass road as far as sewer infrastructure in that road to be more robust and long-term robust, says it best. So we'll continue to coordinate with the developer as well as the contractor on that project. I think other than that,
What's that term you used, bellied up? But
over time, either groundwater from sprinklers, leaks in the system, other things, allow the fine material in the substrate of the roads or in a backyard. In some cases through town here, we have sewer lines. There's a run along back property lines and other things because it was the cheapest low-lying area at the time. Watering of the fields, other things allow settlement to take place. And with that, the pipe will actually settle.
Okay.
And so you can have what we call a belly, a low-lying area.
a little swale in there.
Yeah, where the water doesn't flow freely. And the challenge that we have in sewer is that the sewer carries a variety of things, as we all know. And that heavier solids settle out. And so what it causes is the potential for a blockage and a backup, which is obviously a concern to us. Getting in there, making sure that we don't have any property damage to homeowners and other things. And so it's something that we monitor the sewer regularly for. This year, we're doing a full camera and clean of the entire system. In that effort, we're able to identify those locations where either root intrusion has caused offsets in the pipes, settling in the fields, or at other locations has caused some of those things over time, which is, it's standard maintenance and repair and rehabilitation that we do. But that, it means in the coming years, we'll be coming back to fix some of those things, in some cases entering into property owners' property to do that. One of the challenges that we have here in Tocqueville is when the system was constructed back in the early 80s, 1981, every parcel that the sewer line crossed was recorded as having been crossed by the sewer line, and there was a blanket easement recorded, which isn't a real effective tool for us. Essentially, we come in and we try to coordinate with homeowners. It makes it easy on the legal standpoint, but it's a pretty sloppy tool. So as we come back to do these repairs in areas where we are needed to enter properties where there's a blanket easement, what we anticipate is approaching the homeowners, abandoning the blanket easement in favor of a recorded dedicated easement that's just specific to where the sewer runs itself. Because the blanket just included the list of parcel numbers. So if you have a larger property and we ran at one end, on a legal basis, we could enter at any point on the property. And obviously that would be forward, but we try to coordinate, and sometimes we run into conflicts. Property owners are concerned about crews getting back there, any damages to their properties and things that way, and what does the easement provide as far as protection for landowners, and those questions that come up that way. So it's always a bit of a process to educate the homeowner as well as to plan and prepare our crews so that there's minimal interruption and disturbance of the properties as we do that.
Got a piece of property here in the middle, houses on this side, houses on this side. Sewer line runs right across the middle of my property. Where it runs, everything's turned brown.
You're only about 20% of the people, there's a lot.
I just didn't know if that's one of those things we're talking about.
No, that's not us, that's you.
Oh,
Wherever the sewer line is, it's greener. So if it's brown, it's something that's been used on top.
no, but it just follows the sewer line.
And what we find, and what you may find is that over time, even with the initial construction, because of the soils we have here in Tocqueville, very rocky, very not much organic material, that if that trench was stirred up and then they were just put native fill back in, without some sort of topsoil or additives, a lot of times that rocky stuff stays at the surface and you end up having soil where just things won't seed. A lot of times we've got rocky soil with heavy clays, and that clay will bake like concrete.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I just didn't want to make sure that it wasn't something leaking.
No, I think it'd be green. Yeah, it'll be green. You have nutrient content other than we would.
And water.
So I think that's what we find is typically the soils that we have here are challenging that way. And so those are some of the concerns we have with property owners. In your case, maybe not as big as you don't have the tumbleweeds or other weeds, but if it's through a certain area where there's attractive lawn or other landscaping, then getting that back to that condition is going to be a concern.
Well, it doesn't bother me because it just runs across the property. I'm not concerned about the people on either end that are connected to it.
Okay, any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we're staying busy every day. Just kind of give you a heads up, we're getting close to finishing up our recruit class, and hopefully sometime in May, we'll be opening up our American station to full-time crews there around the clock. So we'll have a little bit closer response to Tocqueville. Should have a total of, when everybody's there each day, 5 people that are at that station. So just a little bit closer to help us out with call volume too. For the month of March, we're a little bit busier over here in Tocqueville. We had a total of 15 medical calls over here and 6 fire calls. I believe most of those fire calls were alarms and stuff like that. A little bit busier in March, and I think the town grows. So, that's the way it is. More people, more calls. So, if you guys have any questions for us? Just get ready for fire season's coming up. So, right now there is open burn on the days that the index is up and the wind's not blowing. It's been very far.
3 days.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough to burn.
If you can, kind of keep trying that number and get your burn in before we shut it down for maybe dry
End of the month, does it go through into April?
April, well,
I thought it was end of,
Yeah, end of April, I think. So
Okay.
unless we get
End of
really
April,
dry,
that's it,
shut it down.
Joey, Joseph.
Planning Commission is going to have for your next month meeting, not next meeting you have, but the next month, we're going to have 2 nightly rentals, zone change of concept, subdivision submittal, and 2 ordinance changes. Other than that, that's all I got to report. Yeah, and there's nothing on the agenda tonight, so that I'm.
Any questions?
Not for this meeting.
Okay, so our reports, the financial report, we met with Hit Verdict today, Ruth and I did. We met with Hit Verdict today for budget review. 83% of the year has elapsed, 69% of the budget has been expended. Our next public hearing to hear from the public about our next fiscal year's budget will be on April 20th. So, we'll public notice that, obviously.
That's at 6 PM, right?
Uh-huh,
Okay.
yep, and we've been working with them to establish our next year's budget. We are anticipating a budget amendment just to reallocate to the right, funds, but, the roads report, the Parkway is still continuing, and this is kind of roads, but Anderson Junction water lines, there will be a discussion about those on, we already had one, we'll have a second one on Thursday, April 14th, that'll be here at City Hall at 5 PM. So the residents have been informed and they've been invited. I don't know. Yeah, it's on. Okay, there we go. And then, economic growth, just reminding you that PSR has been established and we've had great turnout. PSR just allows you, if anybody wants to develop or do anything in the city or has zoning questions, that they can go ahead and contact the city. We obviously have Darren, so that's helped a lot with that, so that we have lots of those zoning questions as they come in rather than doing that. So, and then the FEMA violation moratorium on building permits is still ongoing, so we're getting closer. And we've been working with people really closely with Rosenberg to say, okay, if it's a solar, is this okay or not? And so that's been great. So we have that. And then, Choker Reservoir, we had a meeting about that. That project is ongoing. We're still trying to determine the timeline for the campground and the 10 RV, 10 primitive, and then the 2 group sites. And then our application, we received a notice this week from UDOT on the technical planning assistance grant, just that they will have their final results back within 2 weeks, so then we can start our general transportation, or our general plan, and then move later in the year until master transportation. And, and then city events, I'll let Rachel go, I'll let you go into those if it's fine, it's on the agenda, but the other thing I wanted to just say is that we did have our spring social. That was great. We had great turnout at Center Street Park. Thanks to the council for coming and doing that, and the mayor, obviously. And then we did have Rocky Mountain Little League, the baseball tournament. That was great. The girls did great at concessions. Miss Tokerville, they had really good turnout. I don't know if you want to report on that, but just it went from, they had about $100 in sales their first minute, went up to like 700 the next time. So they were definitely spread, and so that's going to be ongoing as a way to pay for Miss Tokerville and their things, and then some of the parks. So I'll let you update on the rest of the things. So,
Do we need to hear from Darren? I'd love to hear from Darren, but if he has nothing, then,
Oh, I can say something real quick. We have that politician.
oh, that's good. Which is it?
Okay. No, it's good to be working for Tokerville City. Thank you guys for the opportunity and to be able to maybe take this as I see the growth happening and be able to apply codes. It's super fun to be able to see those types of things happening and be able to apply the code that over the
That's a living, breathing document, you guys know. So we look forward to, like I say, planning things. What's that? Yeah, definitely give me a call. Sit down and call it for sit down. That's for me. It's I've been a little bit busy the last 3 days. So
First 3 days?
I've had the first 3 months.
Yeah. Perfect. Good to have you here. Attorney Snow.
We're in the process of working on several different agreements relating to the parkway, having coordination of utilities and placement of some storm drain detention areas on properties, working through those. Also tonight, you're going to get some training on the Utah's Open Public Meeting Act, like is required. I would also suggest that we maybe set some time at another work meeting where we have a little bit of discussion. I cover it just a little bit tonight, but on the Municipal Officers and Employees Ethics Act, just to make sure that we all understand this as elected and appointed officials and as employees, things that we can't.
So real quick, though, our training's not I'm just wondering.
We can do it in 2 weeks.
I just,
Let's do it tonight because we have planning commission here.
okay. Oh, we can do it with planning commission
Yeah,
tonight.
we have new staff,
Oh,
we have
okay.
city
Gotcha.
staff, we
I'm-
have employee
They
staff.
showed
All right, we're doing it
And I'm
tonight.
going to upload, I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'll.
We'll do it.
quickly go
I was
through
just
and-
trying to shorten
And
it.
I'll upload it so that you guys can see it, the council members can see it in the share file.
Okay.
So,
Well, Mike always wants me to have a short meeting, so I was just trying to shorten it up a little bit.
He can go. We can go back.
So that's all you,
That's it.
that's it?
Yep.
Okay, sorry bugging you on there, but, okay. All right, we're going on to our public forum part of the meeting. Limit 3 minutes per person. Please address the microphone and state your full name and address. So this is our time for our public forum.
Hello. My name is Michelle Piot, and I'm a resident of Leeds, Utah, 2070 Silver Reef Drive. And we were first approached at the beginning of March by developer Frank Tusisena, and told that there was this large sports complex that that you were sponsoring and that he was going to be working with, and there was also going to be a resort associated with that, and that his exact words at the planning meeting on March 2nd were that, because we were all kind of shocked by this, was that he was told that he should keep it under wraps because we might be upset about it. And because the resort lies on the boundaries of Leeds, notably we were upset because we felt like there wasn't much transparency about this project at all. Some of the other things that he said in the meeting sounded a little suspicious, like the BLM application was approved and it's going to be a simple process of getting through the environmental assessment. It was just a formality. And I know that that's a very long process and a very complicated process. So we started looking to Frank, and it was actually fairly easy to pull up a lot of documentation on him and history. And we found he had been previously convicted of evictions, breach of contract, fraud. Yes.
At this point.
Yep. It has to do with the development in that Tokerville has been sponsoring him. There's an MOU between his management group as well as Mike Morley's management group. I have gone through the meeting minutes for Leeds. There's been a number of resolutions related to this project. And then the resort property sold recently, was sold to his management group. So there's been a lot of green lighting of this going forward related to this developer. And the reason I'm here is because I felt like you ought to know this person's history, because I personally feel like it poses a substantial financial risk to the Tokerville community should this project fail. And he's also had quite a large complex spectacularly fail in Salt Lake City, That was only a few years ago. And related to that, he had $858,000 in court order judgments. So I felt like that was relevant to this, and I want to ensure that you guys have that awareness before you go further with a partnership with him.
You know, that the city doesn't have a partnership with them.
You currently have a memorandum of understanding with that, and I have noticed that the branding for the sports complex was included in an application to the BLM for the right of way for a road. So there is that. And the memorandum of understanding does state that you'll be working with him. And what I know from Frank is he's been using this information to go to investors.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
And I just wanted to say that
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm concerned about the stuff she found. I hope my time isn't up already, is it? That'd be really sad. Oh, my name is Kathy Bentz. I'm at 370 West Shangri-La. So I'm concerned about what Michelle has uncovered about this developer who would dramatically affect our community. She's not allowed to speak as part of the agenda, I realize, but the documentation in this notebook, I would like to enter as part of the public record because I think it has some really important stuff that I would want our people to be aware of, and I can give this to you.
You're welcome to give a copy to the town clerk, but I mean, the record is just the minutes of the meeting.
Okay, well, we weren't allowed to be on the agenda, so I would have said more of what was in this, but my thing is to talk about this, tie this resort into what's going on in Tokerville, which kind of I'm just concerned about. So I've been told that this resort that Frank is building is conceptual and that there's no formal agreement, but she just explained that there is a little bit of an agreement, and he has his name listed as a manager on land that he bought 200 acres adjacent to the BLM land that Tokerville applied for. So somehow he's getting himself tied into our community, and it concerns me. And according to the city council minutes of September 15th, 2021, the developer told the city council this development was for engaging relationships with groups who would own and run sports tournaments, including international companies. He said this would be a global location and the largest sports park in the Western US. So my question is, I realize that we live right next to a global location. Zion is global, but who wants Tokerville to be a global location? The last master plan in 2017 provided public input, and to the question, quote, which of the following types of new development do you think will promote Tokerville's community character? 60% said parks and open space, 25% said residential, and 12% said commercial. Residents were asked whether they agree or disagree with some statements. Tokerville should remain primarily a residential community. I'm okay with the fact that most people need to commute outside of the city for employment and that there are limited options of shopping and other commercial services in the city. 72% agreed with that statement. So the people I know in this community agree with the findings of that survey. A strong majority want open space, limited building, and certainly limited commercial building. Most came to Tokerville to get out of the high-density overbuilding that's happening in St. George. So does that mean my time is up? Okay, I'm going to have my husband finish my little comments here. So right there. Say your name. Sorry.
Okay. My name is Ray Benson. I live at 370 West Shangri-La, and I'm finishing for my wife. This sport complex project is a long way off and may not happen, but the Firelight project is a reality. The new homes and bypass are happening now, and the massive resort that is part of Firelight may not be far behind. The question is, why are we doing this? Based on the survey that we just saw, 72% that took that survey do not want this. The bypass noise barrier. Now, what we're able to view, now that we're able to view the elevation, we can see that the bypass road comes down to a sharp drop to Tokerville Boulevard. What is being done to shelter the community from the noise of tractor trailers, semi-trucks careening down that steep grade to a complete stop at an intersection that is near the Heights, Cholla, and Trail Ridge? Since federal aid funds were used to build this highway, it is my understanding there must be a study to determine the potential effects of unwanted or excessive highway traffic noise. We want to know, has that happened? If there was a fire or another reason to evacuate, the bypass road eliminates the only other exit for residents of Shangri-La Heights. If there are more than 20 homes, which there are, the law requires a second exit. The bypass road will remove the second evacuation exit. Beside a safety concern, isn't there a legal concern? Most of us are too busy living our lives to notice what's happening. But when the bypass road comes through Tokerville, destroying most of the beautiful place in the city with the cliff rocks and trees, residents will notice, and we believe it will be a sad day. So thank you for your time.
Is there any more public comments for this evening? All right, we will go on with our business items. So item number 1, discuss about Tokerville Code Title 8, Chapter 6, Section 6, recycling opt-out rules and guidelines. So Gary is the guy kind of over that. Do you have more data?
So this one, we actually were not able to find in the agreement, this is the blue can opt-out recycling. Within that, we weren't able to find anything on the service of it, that they could opt out after that initial 90 days. But this is when we were contacted by the district where they said, nobody's even tried to opt out since then, so it's kind of like, but just so you know, this is,
They want us,
we were offering them the opportunity to opt out after. So the district was like, yeah, we can't do that if anybody opts out until they'll be responsible for that. But nobody has tried to opt out, so it's an issue, but yeah, they can't. So we just need to.
we need to delete that section
Correct.
from the ordinance,
On the opt-out part?
the opt-out portion of it.
Okay. So that's, okay.
Yeah,
So-
most of what's on the agenda tonight is just
Right.
informational.
Yep.
It's not items. So that was item number 1.
Okay, item number 2, discussion about unified fleet vehicle lease agreement.
Can everyone hear me okay? You microphone.
Joey needs it. He can't hear you next door.
People watching.
Welcome, Stacy. We're glad you're here. Then the next one is item number 2, just the discussion about the unified fleet vehicle lease agreement. This is just another one that's just informational, just letting you know that the lease expired on the truck that we had for Public Works. We have renewed that lease with the newer trucks. They're $5,500 each for the year. They're unlimited mileage. So that's just kind of informational. Outside of that, we have all of the Public Works and Parks trucks, all the fleet vehicles are being parked outside behind the gates. So we do just need to let you know that. But the main thing is we just wanted to bring this one just so that you know that we do have 2 of those trucks on a lease. We still have JD's white one, obviously, that 2017 that the city owns. And so, yeah. And then with that, we also, so those 2 leases, they're $5,500 and $5,500. We had, council had approved out of the ARPA funds, they had approved the purchase of the trailer, the low deck one that hauls our equipment. And so we were able to sell the old one. We sold that old one. We sold the little red Ranger, and then we sold the Ranger that needed work, the side-by-side that needed the work on it that the city didn't use. It was old. So we were able to sell those, and we got $11,000 for them, and that covered both leases. So anyway, so we did that. So you will see 2 new, they're Chevys, but you'll see they didn't even have Fords available. So you'll see 2 new Chevys. That's what they are, but they will be parked. One, and actually, let me tell you this, and one will be parked behind the gate, but the other, Darren will drive home at night so that we've got that
So there's that. The third item, we invited Trail Ridge Estates to come in. I went and met with them on site, and I think I saw, okay, and you guys are here, great. Yeah. Yes, and we're going to give them an opportunity to speak too, and we've got a Google image up there. I talked to, so the issue with Trail Ridge Estates is on both ends, if you want to pull that up. On both sides of TRE, they're on the park right there, they have detention basins. And the one is very steep and really far down. But at the very top on the corner, they wanted to plant a tree and then maybe eventually put a bench there or a park, just kind of improve the corner right there by the stop sign. The issue is A, it's close to the detention basin, and B, it's in the floodplain. And then down on the bottom end, you'll see on the Glen Canyon Street where it meets Choya, that's where the bridge is across the park. And so right there, there's also a detention basin, and it's not technically abandoned, and it is in the floodplain, but it is not being utilized. And their request is that they also would like to do some landscaping there. I talked to our floodplain administrator. He was going to come out last week, but he's actually coming out this week. But I talked with him about it, and he said if the city would be willing on the big floodplain, on the big detention basin over by Arches and Zion, he said that one would take quite a bit of review, but it might be possible up on top because it's not down in the basin and it's not affecting the flow of the basin of what he can see preliminary. So his suggestion was for them to submit a floodplain development permit that he can review, and then he could see if that would be a possibility that for them to fill in to landscape the top of the one by Arches. It would look better, and they were willing. Their HOA, I don't want to speak for them, I'll let them speak, but they would be doing the improvements, not the city. And the one down on the end, it would be the same thing. It used to be one, the pipe doesn't come out there anymore since the trail's there. It's shallow. He said from what he could see preliminary, it didn't look like it would be an issue with either. It wouldn't affect the drainage or anything, but he can't speak formally until he sees the floodplain development permit. But they had a little bit more info, I think, about what they were wanting to do and do that. Do you want to speak at all? And just kind of say.
It was just one of the things we wanted to do this year. We didn't actually have any plans, but Randy that lives next to it talked to the city and got you involved. But we are going to put it out to our members at Trail Ridge Estates to see, well, what do we want to do? You know, there's maybe some fruit trees so people walking in the past can have some fruit. Who knows? But, you know.
Yeah. And so what they were thinking is that with that, the question with that is that a floodplain development permit is obviously, expensive, and they would have to pay for it. So obviously it would have to come through here and see the plan and things like that, but they don't want to put it out to their members and go any further if it's something that the city, would or wouldn't consider. I mean, there's nothing, it's tumbleweeds and dirt right now. So if it's not, it would be an improvement and not by us. But the issue that we could see with the one on the top is that they were wanting to run a water line from the park up there, which it's secondary water. So they were wanting up to a drip system for the tree. So they just wanted, them to have an opportunity to be heard. Then they could bring it to council for consideration. Okay.
Water and.
Yeah.
We're kind of trouble right now, so we want to make sure we're not.
Right. And I explained that to them. Yeah, exactly. So they just wanted to do it the right way and come and, so, okay. Anything else that you want to add, or you're good? Okay. And he'll be out here on Friday at 2 that we can meet up. So, yeah. So
Item 4, discussion policy, updating time limits for.
yeah, this is another one that's just purely informational because it's a policy, and obviously council has let us draft policy with consent of the mayor. And so this is one this is another one we're just formalizing what we're already doing. So in our procurement policy right now, it lists the amount that who can spend what in this and that, and that the mayor's is 10,000 or this or that. But the part that's missing is just the time limit. It doesn't say if it's within 30 days. It doesn't say if it's 5 days. So we want to add that you could only expend your procurement budget one time within 30 days. So it's just informational. Yeah. Yeah, a year per year. Okay. Yeah. So that's fine. We'll up a few other people's. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so that's just letting you know that is something that we're doing, and it'll be a matter of policy, but informational. Yeah. So every year we have the state auditor, we have a fraud risk assessment. It's just this document. We have to fill it out. It affects insurance rates, but it's tied to things like procurement, conflict of interest. Do you have open public meeting training? Do you guys have HR? Do you have separation of duties for who processes the mail versus who cuts the checks and things? Answer these and score very, very high, but we just wanted to let you know we are completing that for the state auditor's office. And so we'll score high, but again, it's just information just to let you know. In the past, they brought it to the council just because they didn't have staff to fill it out. So here we are.
As training, as the OPMA training, I'm wondering, can we do our reports, real quick, if people want to hear our reports, and then if they want to leave, they don't want to have to sit through the training, they don't have to. But if they want to hear the reports, they can hear the reports.
I think
So
you have
I'm
to
getting.
make a motion. Yeah,
Or we can do the training.
I think you have to make a motion to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to the end.
I mean, I'm trying to make it funny, but it's very boring subject matter. so-
Right. Well, you're a funny guy, so.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. All right, let's go on to council reports. Daisy, I forgot to. If you could pull up, I sent you a park plan, visual park plan. If you could pull it up real quick, I'll get to that one after you get it done. Mike reported on the sewer district. I'll kind of go backwards on mine. The sewer district has a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of growth in this end of the county. Mike's got a huge job. He's doing a great job. I hate to tell him that in front of him here, but there's so much going on in the county. It's amazing. So I think we're in great hands in the sewer district on this side of the county. I don't know what they do on that side. I don't really care about them, but over here we're doing great. Cemetery, the guys are keeping the cemetery looking good. We had a Parks and Trail meeting Monday. We talked about some trails. We're going to update some of our trail plans. We're working through that. We want to get going. The park is what we've all been waiting to see. Here's the park plan. There's the basic layout. It's on Westfield Road. You got Westfield Road is on the bottom of the screen and Mulberry's on the top. So it goes through both sides. That's basically where we're at. And it's on the park. So I'm still waiting on the plans for the bathroom pavilion. I'm still waiting on engineering on that. But other than that, this is the way we have. Gary, Councilman Chaves come over and discussed his concern about having the splash pad between the pavilion and the playground. He was worried about you couldn't watch your kids, but the splash pad's just open air. So I mean, you can see. So that's we brought it up at city council, at the trail meeting, park and trail meeting on Monday, and everybody was comfortable with the layout the way it is. So hopefully we can actually get started on this here in the next month or so. I get this other plans. We'll get things bid out. I know everything is hard to get contractors here right now, so we're gonna have to pull some strings, maybe call a few favors. But that is the basic plan. If you scroll down, we actually have the whole plans, the irrigation plan. We have the plants, calls out the plants and trees. So anyways, if we can get this on the agenda for 2 weeks, we can approve this plan by the city council, the new updated plan. So anyways, that's all I have. Rachel, we'll go to you next.
Just the fundraiser been going good with the baseball games and tournaments. So that's exciting. We have the Easter egg hunt coming up that we're going to do for the first time. We're really excited about it. Should be great. I think we had a great turnout. And then the Miss Tokerville royalty is coming up, and we're working on getting new girls, the new royalty. So we're excited. It's good stuff.
So we had an idea. I'm going to just float it to you real quick in this meeting. We had some people want to know if we could do a run down the parkway before it opens. Do kind of maybe around Thanksgiving, turn our turkey trot into maybe a fun run down the new bypass road. So
Turner's suggested.
yeah, Greg and
Jody.
Yeah, so something maybe we can.
Yeah.
And I said that's Rachel's department.
Thank you.
So I passed the buck.
5K.
So
Yeah,
5K,
for
2.5,
kickoff.
something easy, maybe not, maybe one of each, a short one and a long one for old guys like me that don't like to run. All right, Ty's not here, guys. Are you done, Rachel?
I'm
Sorry,
done.
cut you off.
I'm done.
Chuck,
Okay, nothing on economic development. If you would mind putting that into the agenda here. I got appointed to this economic adjustment and, development. And it's been about 3 months since it's been blank spot in there.
All of those descriptions, the mayor asked for all of the descriptions to come on.
Come on.
He just said council reports. He said, I don't want, if people have something to say, I don't want them just sticking to only their area.
wow.
So he asked for all of those.
So I'm ahead.
That this is,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
This isn't-
I like to know what it's on there so I remember what I'm responsible for, so.
Yeah, he
What's
asked
your
for
job?
all of those. He's like, I want people, I want council to report on what they want to report on.
So, do you have anything else you'd like to report on?
No,
Anything?
that was a visionary approach, so.
Wow. Awesome. Mayor's not here, so at this point, we're pretty much done with the meeting. We're going to move back up to item 6 and have our OPMA training by Councilman Snow. And I heard you can give this in 20 minutes. Sorry, Attorney Snow. Attorney Snow. He's counsel when he's in the courthouse.
Council.
Is there a way I can hook my laptop up?
Yeah, there is.
How does the mayor sit with this thing? He must have small legs.
Okay.
He's got short legs or
Well, it's
something.
adjustable.
Oh, no, I
Not
mean,
the stool, is
he's
it?
got this.
Oh. I never, well, it wasn't for Chamberlain, I know that.
No, this was over there when Keen was.
Are we still on recording?
Yeah, we're still live.
Yes, we have not closed our.
We're still open meeting for open. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, just we'll look at them. Okay. Thanks, Kathy.
Is there a way that I can control the slides?
Don't let them.
Give me the, well,
We can try this.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. You're the driver.
if I knew how to get them to that small.
This is my second time in a month to have this.
Oh, really? If you've already got it done, you can leave.
The,
Technically, you've already got the certificate.
From Utah Military Academy. Same outfit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit down here by Joe and do
Joe.
Really feel like I'm in lots. This would be probably the easiest way to do this.
Yeah, 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
So this is our training. Our annual training is required by the Utah Open Public Meetings Act. We have to discuss a couple different things. Why do we have the Open Public Meetings Act in Utah? The idea is legislature wanted all state agencies, all federally and publicly funded agencies to be open in their conduct. And it also, the intent of the legislature is that agencies, and I'm probably better off taking those guys off, as political subdivisions take their actions openly and conduct their deliberations openly. What does this act do? It requires government to take actions openly and transparently. It requires notice of our meetings. A certain period of time we have to have meetings. We're going to talk about that in more detail. It's going to require that these public agencies and entities that are subject to the Open and Public Meetings Act have to keep record of their meetings. And there's a certain process, and there has to be participation allowed in certain circumstances. Who's allowed? Who is subject to the law? I couldn't find, there was not, and we didn't even have staff on this either, or very many planning commissioners. So I just kind of stuck, but I did make the mayor's nice and big because he's the head honcho. You notice that? You see that? The head honcho. Okay, yeah, we stretched it a little bit. Justin's like, how come mine's wider than hey.
We were having fun when we were putting it together. Okay, so any administrative or advisory or legislative body that was created under the Utah Constitution that consists of 2 or more persons, spends and distributes supported taxpayer money or has authority to make decisions and recommendations about public businesses, they're all subject to open and public meetings, this act. What are some examples of entities that must comply with the act? And I'm trying to do this so we appreciate it locally. That would be the Tocqueville City Council, Tocqueville Planning Commission, Tocqueville Appeal Authority, special districts that we deal with all the time here in Tocqueville, Ash Creek, Kirk and Valley Fire District, Washington County District, Gulf Lakes District, you name it. Even if we're going to do a code enforcement process, and that's why I kept this picture here. I don't know if we still have Mayor as our code enforcement hearing officer or not. Who is not affected by the act? That might be interesting. The chair of a public body acting in an administrative role. Your mayor, sometimes when he's just dealing with someone comes in to meet with him, he's not acting, he's acting administratively. He's making decisions to enforce rules and stuff like that. That does not necessarily require public notice, and that political parties, they are not affected by this. They can have their meetings. If you're going to have a caucus meeting here, doesn't require community councils. And you think, what's a community council? Well, we've got a tree board here. We've got neighborhood watch. They don't, those types of entities. Staff meetings. When AFT has a staff meeting here, that is not a public meeting. That's subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. The definition of meeting is very important. Meeting means the convening of a public body. We talked about what those are, with a quorum present, including a workshop or an executive session, whether the meeting is held in person or by means of electronic communications for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments from the public about or acting upon a matter over which the public body has jurisdiction, power, or authority. So what is not a meeting? A chance meeting. You just 2 or more council members meet at the grocery store and start talking about things. A social meeting. You guys can cook pancakes on the 4th of July together. You don't need to give public notice. This is one that is somewhat fairly misunderstood, email or text. It can be, it is not considered a meeting, but we cannot be making decisions like straw poll, everybody chime in. You should not be sending out drafts of documents that are going to be, should be discussed publicly on things or giving comments back. Meeting of a legislative body with both legislative and executive responsibilities where no public funds are appropriated. Meeting solely for a discussion to implement an administrative matter. Maybe if you guys are going to be talking about, let's say, employee vehicle use policy. Guess what? You're council, you're the governing body, but you're acting administratively. You're not making a law that applies to the entire public. It's just to the employees of the city. That technically doesn't require, we oftentimes will do that in a publicly noticed meeting. It doesn't have to. Okay, attendance meetings. You can attend, how can you attend a meeting, a public meeting? You can attend by phone, computer, other electronic means. Notice requirements still apply. We've dealt with this of recent because of the pandemic. We had the governor issue an executive order which relaxed the Open and Public Meetings Act requirements to some extent so that we can have meetings. It hasn't been as critical. Closed meetings. When can you have a closed executive session? So all meetings by default has to be held publicly. Everything has to be discussed, except for in the Big 7. If you're discussing an individual's character, professional competence, or physical mental health, this includes all personnel discussions. Okay, so if you're discussing about whether there be any disciplinary action on an employee or something like that, a personnel matter like that, it should be closed, and that is one of the reasons why you can. Strategy sessions to discuss collective bargaining. We don't have enough employees. We don't have employee unions, stuff like that. So that really is not relevant to us. Discussions regarding security, personnel, devices, and systems. And so, if we're rarely used. Investigative proceedings regarding allegations of criminal misconduct. Obviously, those things need to be held. If they're going to be referred for criminal prosecution, those things are to be had and discussed in a closed meeting. Discussing trade secrets, commercial information, or sensitive procurement information. Obviously, if we're about ready to go out and buy 8 new trucks for the city, and we don't want to be talking what is the top dollar we're willing to pay, because we could have Joe, who owns the GMC dealership here, and then we would lose all the competitive advantage. They know what our bottom dollar is on those types of things. So, discussing pending or reasonably imminent litigation. Doesn't have to be actual litigation. If there's been a threat of litigation, it can and be discussed. And we've had some challenges on this over the last 15 years or so, and this is pretty much the standards they've allowed, and they've been very liberal. You can go in and talk about sensitive issues where there has been some threat of liability to the city, and you can do it in a closed session to discuss strategy and other things like that. Strategy sessions to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or sale of real property. That's kind of a lot like the procurement portion, but this has to do just real property. That would include water rights too. Obviously, you don't want to talk about what we're interested in buying and what we're willing to pay and strategies that we may do, because if the seller had the opportunity to know of this, then we would be losing our competitive advantage. Are there any meetings that must be closed? The answer to that is no. Decisions to close a meeting in public are always discretionary, not mandatory. The law does not require any meeting to be closed. I like the sign. Meeting on open meetings is closed. A quorum. So to close a meeting, let's talk about how you close a meeting. To close a meeting, you have to have a quorum present. So if just 2 of you are here, we never vote. You can't go into executive session and start to eat. You have a quorum here, you could go into executive session tonight. 2/3 of the body present must vote to close the meeting. So 2 out of the 3 of you have to in tonight's setting. The body must first hold a public meeting with proper notice. The body must publicly disclose and vote. And you have to give one of the big 7 reasons that we just talked about. What is forbidden to do? What can you do or not do in an executive session? You cannot approve anything. You can't approve an ordinance. You can't approve a resolution. You can't approve or authorize entering into a contract or anything like that. You're not supposed to interview a person to fill an elected position. Now, for instance, I know we had executive interviews of city managers and stuff like that. That is not an elected position. But say we have a vacancy on the city council, and you have 5 people submit a notice of interest to fill that position, or on it, then those interviews should be done publicly. That is one thing that you can't do that in a closed meeting. So no final actions on anything, no final votes. Just don't do it. Are there any notice requirements for a public meeting? Must be posted in the business office of the entity. So we have to post a copy here at City Hall of any public meeting that's happening within the city. Must be given to at least one local newspaper general circulation or local media correspondent. That is still in the statute. I don't know how relevant that is because of the way that the Utah Public Notice website, how that is controlled by the newspaper contingent within the state. I think that complies already. But it has to be at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. You have to post the agenda, and the agenda has to show with reasonable specificity, and that is not defined in law. You have to let the average person know the general topic of what we're going to be discussing. It does not have to go into the nth degree of detail. And, obviously, I get questions about how should we word things on the agenda all the time. We try to deal with it just to give everyone notice. What about emergencies? Yeah, we know we've been dealing with that. Let's not discuss that. What about records of the meetings? Do we have to keep minutes? Yes. Written minutes must be taken of open meetings. A recording of all open meetings and closed meetings must be kept also. But there are a couple exceptions. You do not record an executive session where you're discussing security matters or personnel matters. Not recorded. I had this very situation we did in another municipality I represented the other day, and they were recording. They were talking about terminating a couple of employees, and I said, no, we don't record this section of it. Usually what has to happen is when we go into executive session, and I don't know if we're clearly doing this, and okay, so the affidavit, we should be, if we could ever go into executive session, the recorder should, we should have a standard affidavit form that the mayor just signs and says why we went into it, the date, the time, that type of thing. So, what are the requirements for keeping minutes? I have to have date, time, place, meeting, names of all members of the body present, not everyone out in the crowd. In addition, to all minutes of open meetings, they should include all matters proposed, discussed, or decided, all names of any, and the substance of information from individuals giving testimony. That's not everyone who talks, and that would only be in certain situations where someone, the board or body, you guys called on someone specifically and asked them a question because of their knowledge or experience. Individual votes on each matter, that should necessarily be kept. It can be as simple as if it was consensus or a consensus vote. You can state it that way. Any additional information requested by a member does not need to be verbatim. That's the one thing that you have to tell recorders in municipalities I work with. Some really struggle on how much detail it needs to be. Less is good, but you need to have some of the basics here in this. One of the minutes and recordings of open meetings public. Drafts aren't, and people will come in and ask, and you guys see all the time, we're approving minutes from like a month before, and we may have, these guys may be on it, and may have the draft minutes done 2 days after the meeting, but it is not to be released to the public until the minutes have been approved, okay? Minutes released prior to final approval must be identified as unapproved. I would much rather we not release them. We don't have to, but if we do, if we choose to as policy, we need to mark them as being unapproved. You know, I have these questions about sometimes we have a public meeting, even if you're going to go as a council out and do a site visit, what kind of detail? I don't think there needs to be much any detail. If there is a specific vote that's to be taken, then you would need to have the minutes of the actual vote taken. But I think if you're in an open setting on a field trip, how in the world could the recorder be expected to keep, very detailed minutes on that? What happens if someone violates? I don't think it's the jail time that you see right here, but a member of the public body who intentionally violates or intentionally abets or advises a violation of the closed meeting provisions is guilty of a Class B misdemeanor punishable, fine not exceeding $1,000, and confined with not more than 6 months in jail. What does that mean? Stay on subject. If you go into an executive session, discuss the things that you move to discuss. It is not a means to excuse the entire public and then go off talking about anything else other than what specifically the purpose and emotion was for. And there has been a couple situations where there were municipalities and there were certain elected officials who were charged with this because they were having a lot of their bulk of their meeting in executive sessions. They were basically using it to excuse the public about their business. Court may void any action taken in violation of the act. So that's a remedy that a court has if someone brings a civil action against the municipality. A land use decision can be made void after the fact. We don't want that. We don't want the cost and expense, and we want the finality of any decision we make to be final. And we may have to pay the court costs and attorney's fees of a party bringing it. So it's another reason why we don't want to do it. Common violations of the act: closing meetings without members of the body voting first in an open meeting. To close the meeting, conducting a closed meeting for a reason other than those allowed under the Big Seven. taking official or final action in closed meeting except with respect to judicial or quasi-judicial decisions, failing to properly provide notice to the public and post the agenda on the state website. Yeah, that's the one I hear all the time. People just want to know, they want to, we need to comply with that. Although not specific violation to act, it is a potential due process violation to allow public comment on a pending application where the applicant has not been given prior notice. So that's one thing that we're now required to do is the actual applicant for a land use decision. We need to give them notice that we are going to be discussing your item. And if we intend to take public comment on it, they have to have notice because they have to have the ability to come and defend or respond to any false allegations and things that are made. And who can enforce the act? That's our good friend who ran to be the Attorney General, but the County Attorney's Office can do it too. But a private citizen can bring a civil action for violation of the act. We don't need to go through that. Some of these questions that we have is, what about social media and video conferencing, streaming platforms, access to meetings for everyone? Some of the trends is, we see, we stream our meetings. That is an improvement. And I think that meets with a lot of different aspects of the spirit of the act, but we have to also be careful about getting too much into posting comments on social media platforms when we're elected or appointed officials on subjects that we're going to be taking action on. We can't, the process has to occur. If we're giving our opinion how we're going to vote on a certain subject that's going to come before us in a social media posting 10 days before it comes to us, then the process has already been had. We're not giving the applicant proper due process. And we just need to do everything publicly. So if there's any other questions, feel free to ask me and we'll go from there. Did we do it in 20 minutes?
21.
Okay, that's good. Done. Okay.
Outstanding.
Yep. I'll sign anybody and everybody's certificate of completion.
Okay, we have to go over our calendar of events real quick. That's one thing I forgot to do. It's on the agenda. I want to make sure we do it. So, Ms. Tocqueville pageant, April 8th, 7 p.m., Town Hall. Community Easter egg hunt. Rachel brought it up. April 16th, 10 a.m. at Center Street Park. Spring community cleanup, dumpsters around town, April 27th to 25th. And our first farmers market, May 21st, here at Town Hall. I'm excited for that. I think we're going to have some good tacos, whatever else shows up. So I think it'll be good. Other than getting your certificate signed before you leave, is there anything else, Afton, we need? Darren, council members? Move to adjourn. So we will adjourn this meeting at 7:03.
No good. Game.